Hello.
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 Let's go!
Hey, kids.
Hey, Dad.
War crimes will be prosecuted.
Let's have a Liberty City burn it to the ground.
Does the word duh mean anything to you?
Yeah, I chose this profession, so therefore I earned beer.
You want to go to the matinee?
The feeling is definitely there.
You don't know my name!
It's a new morning in America.
This is the old dude, Howard J. Reynolds.
Step into my office.
Not going to be too many punks.
John, would you stop worrying about the punk?
That's my name.
Yeah, let's go to the punk rock show.
Introducing for your listening pleasure.
Here it is. Here we go. Episode 91 of the High Fives podcast. Michael.
Oh, you said it right.
Do I normally not say it right?
Would you like to say it in a different accent? Could you try it in a multitude of accents?
Oh, wow. The chirping starts early.
Can you say my last name properly? Probably not.
This all coming from the guy who gave almost no effort in pronouncing.
Low expectations.
And it gives you the ability to chirp me in the following episode.
Take the shots when I can get them, right? I take them when I can get them.
Yeah, it was all planned, right? It was all planned. I was just going to ask how you are. I was just going to say, Michael, how are you doing? You know, I was being polite and nice.
I'm doing great. You said my name correctly. I'm doing great.
The Anglo names are easy for me to pronounce.
It's fair.
Yeah. You're doing great. Well, that's great. I'm great too.
I didn't ask you.
Oh,
No, how are you, Nate? How are things?
we're off to a great start. I'm not going to share that with you. You can forget it. You can
right.
absolutely.
This is a
Forget
business
it.
relationship.
That's right. That's right. This is transactional. So here we are again. It's the 91st episode, and we're doing the sixth
Yeah.
episode again.
I think it's
Sixth?
7.
Oh,
No,
yeah,
it's
it's
7.
7. Yeah, that's right. That's how the months go, right? July is 7. So if you've been following along, the 7th episode that we're redoing because it's available nowhere was the top 5 Fat Records releases. And the reason we did that was because originally, 9 years ago, I think we decided it was 9 years. This is our 9th year we've been doing it, not 10. I've been saying 10. It's not 10. This is our 9th year. So originally 9 years ago, this would have been the 25-year anniversary for Fat Records. So it made a lot of sense for us to do a top 5 list then. Makes a little less sense now at 34 years, I guess. 34 years of Fat Record. Like, not a lot of people have a 34-year milestone anniversary, but here we are. We're making one. I know that it doesn't make a lot of sense, but I feel like it makes sense in the fact that we're continuing on with this pilgrimage of returning to our roots, returning to season 1 of the High Fives podcast and doing it again and doing it most likely better.
I would say 100% better.
But I think when you do a punk rock podcast, this also, Fat Records is arguably one of the most important labels in punk rock. So if you were going to do a label once and maybe even twice as a top 5, and I think we did at least one other label in our 91 episodes, this one makes sense to do. Agreed?
For sure. Like, especially for anybody that grew up in the 90s or 2000s, like Fat's the probably top 3 influential punk, skate punk, melodic punk labels. Like, if something was on Fat when we were like 15, 16, 17, you just checked it out, right? Like, it was like a no-brainer to go check it out. Their comps were influential. It just made it accessible to people who didn't maybe listen to punk, I think. And maybe that's sort of the knock that Fat got too, right? Is that like it was one of the labels, like Fat and Epitaph, opened that door to a bunch of people that maybe were never exposed to it, which I thought's great, but also I see why it got shit on a little bit by people. Because, like, I mean, people still make fun of me, like, if they haven't seen me in a while, they're like, oh, you still listening to Fat bands? I'm like, yeah. I don't care.
That's a knock. That's somebody being a jerk.
Yeah, I guess there's that connotation, right? Like it was some sort of negative connotation for a bit. But I mean, really, it's if you like that kind of music, they're the influential one from that era.
Totally.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say they had or have many of our favorite bands growing up, and still a lot of our favorite bands today. It's interesting also how they had such a distinct sound in the 90s, which was largely attributed to Ryan Green as the Fat engineer and producer, but how they kind of got away from that too as the years went on.
I love that they experimented out of that too, but staying within the genre.
Totally.
Like they didn't, like I was saying, like if it was on Fat, it was worth checking out if you're someone that liked the same kind of music as we did. And to some extent still, like if something comes out on Fat, I'm like, oh, I want to check it out.
Absolutely. And I think now they've just expanded more of the roster to have more variety in it. You know, like bands like Old Man Markley or Pears or Direct Hit or Days and Days, like all very different from what that 90s Fat sound was.
One of the reasons I didn't really want to do this is because I was thinking about that if my picks would even change from the last episode. And I don't know how you thought about it for you. Did yours change?
So it's interesting. I kept two because two of them, there was no change to those. Like two were so entrenched into my musical selection and what I listen to and what I've always kind of listened to. But the other three I did change. And I would say two of them were like really close picks the last time around. And one of them came after the fact, came in the last couple of years. But it's interesting because I think that as we've been doing these episodes, these episodes of the first season and revisiting those topics, a lot of times it hasn't just been like forced, oh, I need to like figure out something new. It can't be the same. Like 9 years later or 8 years later or whatever, those changes aren't forced. They're just kind of natural. And it's interesting to see that in myself, like how music is informed by place and time and perspective, and how much that can change over just, a handful of years.
Oh, for sure. This episode probably the only one where I didn't want to do it because I was like, oh, well, it would still probably be my top 5 in my head. So what I did was I decided to change it up and say it was my favorite Fat releases from 2010 on, because I looked at it and I figured out when that Fat retrospective came out, which was 2009.
Right.
And up until then, I would say it was like basically all hits or more hits than misses for Fat for me at that time.
Yeah.
So I thought I'd try to narrow it down and change something so that way none of those picks for my first episode were on that. So I just went from 2010 on.
Nice.
And we'll see. We'll go from there.
I like that idea. We could have done that together, Mike.
Well, it doesn't really matter. Sorry. I kind of.
You could have, but you didn't. You chose not to.
No.
You chose to go it alone.
Well, you changed yours anyway, so it's all good.
Don't try and make it okay.
It's okay.
It's not okay.
It's going to make the episode interesting because we'll still get some oldies in there too.
You know what else I was noticing as I was going through all the releases that Fat has had over the years is that there's like a good handful of just kind of one-offs that they did with bands. Like there was a couple of albums that they did with J Church, the Suicide Machines.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Or maybe they had distro rights on it or something, but they're listed as releases on Fat's site.
Mm-hmm.
There's 2 J Church records. The latest Suicide Machines is on Fat. There's a couple of Dance Hall Crashers albums on Fat. Like, it's just interesting how those weren't really like part of, the...
Oh, I wonder if those were Honest Dons originally, like the J Church, and the Dance Hall Crashers was on Honest Dons, I think.
Oh. That confuses everything.
I would call Honest Dons Fat though too.
Maybe they have put them together now, like in the catalog.
Yeah. And maybe they've got like the way that things worked with with digital distribution and like vinyl re-releases and stuff.
Right. Right.
Like I always wondered if they'll get the rights to the NoFX albums eventually, like all of them or something. Because Epitaph's got them before, right?
Well, up until war.
Yeah.
And
So
then after war, it's all fat. Have you been listening to some stuff?
of course. But first, I'd like to hear what you were listening to.
Well, Mike, let me tell you. Great setup, by the way. I have been listening to a band called Sad Park. They just put out a new record called No More Sound. Sad Park is alternative emo punk. This is their third full length. And this has been on repeat since it came out. It's got catchy riffs, frustrated and sometimes aggressive vocals. This album tells a story of the quarter life crisis. Did you have a quarter life crisis, Mike? Did you do that one?
What's the quarter life crisis?
Well, I think that's like 25, right? 25 to 30 is the quarter life.
No, not so much.
No? You
No.
were good? You were good at 25 to 30? I definitely had a quarter life. Like, I just didn't know what it was called.
I didn't then. I definitely have had other life crises since then. So maybe I upped my quarter at some point
You doubled down?
to like 35-ish. Then I was like, ugh. And now I'm in a midlife crisis.
But it's like a midlife on steroids.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
I'm driving a Lamborghini now. It's in my mind, but
Lamborghini with a Y.
yeah.
There's something very familiar, but also new and refreshing about this album. My second offering tonight is a band called Sweet Gloom, and the album is called Reverie. This is their debut album on Asian Man Records. I was really pumped for this one because I was really liking the singles and excited to hear what the rest of the album would sound like. Members of Get Married and Tiny Stills in this band. There's like a kind of a doo-wop surf rock vibe to this infectiously melodic pop punk record. As the band name suggests, there is a contrast of sweetness and gloom on this album. The music itself and vocals kind of lend itself to this bouncy, like sing along, and that pairs with these kind of dark and gloomy lyrics. Lyrics like, "Since when did I just want to die all the time?" Sung over top of like kind of Beach Boy-esque happy sunshine time. So it's an interesting contrast that makes this album unique. My third offering is Wavebreaker number 4, which is, I don't really know how to describe this series, but this one specifically is a 6-song split between Joe Gittleman and Bad Operation. And if you are like me and have been longing for something with a Boss Tones feel, these Joe Gittleman songs will help that crave. Joe was the former bass player and songwriter or co-songwriter for the Mighty Mighty Boss Tones, and there is a direct connection in these songs. I've been waiting on a new Bad Operation album since their self-titled record came out in 2020. So this helped to quench that thirst, and the songs didn't disappoint. As far as I can tell, Wavebreaker is like collab releases brought to you from
Bad Time Records, right?
Yeah, Bad Time Records. That's right. Other releases for this collab comp are Less Than Jake and Kill Lincoln did a split. Mike Park and Catbite did a split. Folly and The Best of the Worst. Have you heard those ones, Mike? Have you heard all of the Wavebreakers?
They are really good. The Best of the Worst one is really good too, because I don't know that band. And then apparently they like up to the quote unquote ska, because they're not a ska band, I don't think, but I think they like added some like elements of it.
Huh. They added some upstrokes to get on the bad time.
Some pick it ups.
My fourth and final offering this evening, Mike, is a band that I saw on one of the best of so far lists that came out after our last episode. Shout out to Simon. Gum is the band. Slogan Machine is the album. Despite having singles that go all the way back to 2018, this is their first full-length hardcore band from Chattanooga. That's fun to say, hey?
That is a fun one.
Chattanooga, Tennessee. Yeah, this album is just a punch in the mouth from the very first song. There are nods to bands like Drug Church and Military Gun, but this album has its own unique and aggressive voice. Michael, that's it for me.
That was a very solid list.
Any overlaps? Have you been listening to any of those things?
Yeah, I've been listening to the Sad Park for sure. The Wavebreaker's really good too. I don't think I understood how much Joe was involved in the Boss Tones writing until that. Because I'm like, these sound like Boss Tone songs, like
totally.
Even vocally, kind of.
Totally.
Like,
yeah, he's got like a Dicky kind of tone to his voice.
And I've been meaning to check out the Sweet Gloom since Mike Park tweeted about it and you told me about it. Just haven't had a chance yet, and I didn't know anything about this gum one yet. So, also we'll check that out.
2 M's, by the way, not just
2
one.
M's.
Yeah, it's a double M gum.
That's how they teach you to spell in Chattanooga, right?
It's the knockoff version of gum, like Lamborghini with a Y.
Yeah. Okay, so what I've been listening to is a band called Headaches and their album 8 Steps to Sobriety. They're a punk band from North Devon, UK. I have no idea where that is in the UK. I tried to Google it and I got 2 different answers, so I gave up. They released an 8-song album called 8 Step Guide to Sobriety, which also made it very difficult to Bing or Google it because Headaches and 8 Step Guide to Sobriety led down a path of recovery and addiction sites.
I bet.
This album doesn't seem to have anything to do with that. So regardless of that, they're a great 3-chord pop punk band, and their songs are funny, catchy, and anthemic. If you're looking for a song about a hangover, they have one. Give them a listen if you like bands like TBR or The Copyrights, and with hints of Ramones core. Next band is a 3-piece band from Montreal called Taxi Girls, and their EP Coming Up Roses. It just came out on Dirt Cult Records. They play infectious up-tempo punk rock featuring members of Pale Lips, which is a band I love. If this wasn't an EP, I'd probably be considering it for album of the year.
Wow.
It's so catchy and so great.
That's bold.
It is. Another band I'm listening to is a band called Magazine Beach and their album Constant Springtime. This was a late cut for our last episode, just because I felt like I was playing too many bands that might be emo and indie rock, kind of that emo indie rock sound. But they play that brand of emo that's kind of like Hot Mulligan or Thanks I Hate It. The more I listen to this album, the more I love it. If you're a fan of all these emo revival bands, you got to check it out. I'm also a big fan when bands have 2 vocalists that play off each other, and this band does such a good job of it. So, and finally is a band called Your Heart Breaks, and the album's called The Rack Line. Your Heart Breaks identifies as a queer band from the Northwest and is, from what I can tell, fronted by Clyde Peterson and then made up of various studio band members from bands such as Lake and Black Belt in Eagle Scout. The album features a bunch of guests as well that includes the ever elusive John K. Sampson, Kimya Dawson, and Nana Grizzle. Your Heartbreak describes the album as a summation of the past few years, a lifetime of friendships, feelings, and memories, broken free and left upon the artist's shoreline. The album was written as a collaborative effort between Peterson, occasionally known as Your Heart Breaks, and a slew of many special guests across the world. The songs were created through numerous exchanges of concepts, hooks, riffs, and emotional conversations, processed through tin can telephones, carrier pigeons, twilight dreams, and shooting stars. Take your shoes off and walk the beach. And I thought that was a pretty descriptive way to describe an album. So,
wow.
Yeah.
It's a good night for it, Mike. It's a good night for walking on the beach.
Hit up Sukhumi Beach.
Yeah. Should we do the list?
Let's do the list.
I don't think we're going to have a lot of crossover with your new rule that you instituted for one person.
What if there is crossover? That'll be even more impressive.
Right?
Yeah.
And we're really syncing up. My first one is a band that I chose the first time around, but I changed the album. And let me tell you why. The reason I changed the album is because I think the last time we did this, they had a new-ish or a more new album out. And that was new and it was shiny and it was exciting and it was very much of the moment. And I still like that album, but it's not quite as timeless as this album. So the band I'm talking about is Lagwagon. The album I'm talking about came out in 1995 and it's Hoss. And it was their third album and arguably my favorite Lagwagon album of the bunch. I also felt like it was important to have Lagwagon on this episode because I think they were the first band that Fat actually signed. Thoughts?
Are you looking for confirmation from me?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think they are the first band, and I love Hoss. So it's a great album.
Okay, great. So double confirmation. Good.
Which album did you pick last time then? Hang or
Hang. Yeah, so I picked Hang last time, Hoss this time. So Lagwagon also had the third release on Fat. I think the first two were NoFX releases, not full lengths, but NoFX releases. And then Lagwagon had the first full length, which was Duh. And that was the third overall Fat release. So the last time I ignored Hoss a little bit. And I don't know why I did that, because this one really does stand up. This one really does stand the test of time. And I remember when like I first heard Lagwagon, and I remember thinking like this was like a different kind of punk. Like this was melodic and catchy. And I think the things that I was listening to at the beginning wasn't necessarily of that same vein. Like Lagwagon just had a very different sound to them, I think, separate from a lot of the bands that I was kind of discovering when this album would have come out. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I always found like Lagwagon had a little bit, and it's probably the guitar tones, like a metal thing to them. And I believe, knowing now, I think they were more metal at one point.
Yeah.
So you can sort of see that element that was a little bit different than some of the other bands at the time.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the gateway to this album was definitely The Survival of the Fattest, Volume 2 compilation. Sleep was one of the songs on there. And the side A from Hoss was definitely what held my attention for this album as the years went on. But more recently, I've been diving more into the less celebrated side B of this record. The song I chose was Bro Dependent. And as I was looking at the lists, because there are obviously a lot of lists that came out when the 25th anniversary for Fat came. And then there were even more lists that came out when they hit their 30th anniversary, not their 34th, surprisingly, but the 25th
Fools.
and 30th. Yeah, those are some real milestones that had a lot of lists. And Hoss is definitely one of those albums that kept popping up on a lot of those lists across the board. In my opinion, except for maybe one song too many, it is a perfect album.
Do you like the remastered version of it, or?
I don't know if I've heard the remastered, to be honest with you. And I don't really like listening to the remastered albums because they add like 200 more songs on it. Like,
Well, yeah,
that
so it's double
drive me
now.
crazy.
I feel like the Lagwagon ones were done well. If
Oh, yeah?
you ever get a chance to listen to them. But yeah, there's a lot of extra songs on them. But the Lagwagon ones, I feel like the remasters helped.
Huh. Interesting. I feel like the Propagandy ones, like they were noticeable enough to me that like and maybe it's just that I've listened to those albums so many times that it was noticeable. But a lot of the remasters, I haven't really noticed the change unless I were to like listen to them side by side.
Yeah, it's not like drastic enough that you would never listen to the old one again, but it did help, like I think just like sound quality wise and stuff.
Right.
More so.
Right.
But yeah, like that one Propagandy album that got remastered is like so much better. But
Right.
anyway, is that all you want to say about Hoss?
That's it. That's all I have to say, Mike.
Excellent. The first album I picked is Direct Hits 2016 album Wasted Mind.
Nice.
This is their third full length and first Fat record release. Up until then, I had been a fan of theirs, and their second album, Brainless God, was really good, and it was a big jump from their first album. that they kind of ditched a little bit of the pop punk and added a little bit more hardcore and melodic melodies to it, which is a stupid way to say something, but that's what I said. If Brainless God was a big jump, then Wasted Mind was even a bigger jump. It's a mix of catchy pop punk, hardcore, anthemic courses, and it's an album I find myself still going back to this day. Lyrically, it's a concept album about psychedelic drugs and drug use, akin to Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. And while a lot of bands attempt this sort of thing, Direct Hit does a better job than most. Yeah, I just really love this album. I'm not sure if the one after it is as good as this one even, but I don't know, this album is just so good. Like, I think it was at the top of my list when it came out, or the year end when it came out. I didn't look, but yeah, like I said, it's still one I keep going to. And I went with the song Artificial Confidence, but I want to include the intro track because once you hear Fuck You Get Pumped, you know you're in for a ride.
Yeah, I'm sure this made your top 30 that year.
Well,
this
what
would have been
didn't?
one of 30, right?
What didn't?
I can't narrow things down, so I'm just going to give 30 choices for an entire year of music.
I won't do it this year.
Yeah, you will.
No, I won't.
You're going to do it.
No, I can't handle the mockery anymore. I'm out.
Lagwagon's album Hoss, the song is Bro Dependent, and
Direct Hit, the album's Wasted Mind, and the song is A Message to Young People intro, and then Artificial Confidence.
It's a lot, and it's becoming oh so clear. I take it in excess, if my true feelings are suppressed. I cannot find the words to say it without hurting. I'm listening to what you say, wanting nothing to do. As you take a dose of grief, as you insist there's no relief. Another drink, and you take it in excess. It's your true feelings are suppressed. You cannot find a way to cure it without hurting. You cure it, but it seems your problem still remains. Obsession, compulsion, my friend, overdoing everything. So focus on what you need. Listen to what you hear. This is the last time I listen. Coming all too clear. I completely confused. I take it in excess. My true feelings are suppressed. Just when I find the words to say it, I've spoken all too soon.
This record is a message to young people. If you're over the age of 40, I'm not sure that you should listen to this record. What I'm going to say might make you mad. I don't like to get people mad. Because these are the people who have guns, and handcuffs, and prisons, a wide variety of instruments of metal with which they punish people. Young people get to be mad. Fuck you! Get pumped! Well, I've been sitting in the backseat of this car for half an hour, and I'm wondering if any of this is real. Trouble is, I
You can tell us no, or tell us that we'll fail, 'cause we're too far gone to care. And time moves way too slow. Let's pick up the pace and go. Double time this beating well. No one rests until we're there. In a place we won't have to care about what we don't know. In a world that tells you go. So have a pill, pull up a chair.
So this second choice is not going to be a big shocker, Mike. I hate to disappoint. This is not going to be a surprise to you at all. This is likely a band we've talked about. I think this band probably gets the most play on this podcast. And maybe even this album. If it's not all from this album certainly gets talked about. This is the sophomore record of Propaganda. It's less talk, more rock. This is a carryover. I used this album the first time around. I'm using it again. This is arguably my favorite band if I had to pick one. I don't like to pick a favorite band because I feel like there's so many bands with different sounds and different, just the way that they approach music is completely different. The way they write music is completely different. So, it's apples and oranges and grapes. It's a huge fruit salad. How do you pick one thing as your favorite in there?
That's why I have a 30-year end list.
Yeah, I'm preaching to the choir right now. I'm aware of that. But if I had to pick a favorite, like gun to your head, had to pick a favorite, Propaganda might be the favorite.
You know what, Nate? I've said that a few times now too.
Gun to your head?
Gun to my head, Propaganda might top all my other bands that I love.
Yeah. Yeah. So this album was consciously confrontational, which I love. And it was an effort to weed out the idiots that were showing up to their shows. A story that I'm sure most people have heard before. It's a new story. But I love that. I love that about this album. And I think that's why this one stands out to me so much more. I mean, it also hit me at such a pivotal moment in my life. This album put the band's morals and values front and center and drew a line in the sand. And that's what I instantly connected with. This album would lay the framework for the values that I hold close today. And it really woke me to the world around me. It shone a light on the inequalities in the world, social injustices, and increased my social awareness. So this album really challenged me to do more and have a voice. And I'm forever grateful for discovering this album when I did, and to the band that wrote these songs that I still hold near and dear. And I think something that I only just realized after all these years, and I'm sure that you were aware of this long before me, but that the cover art is a poster from the 1984 Calgary Stampede, which was just celebrated in this city. You'll notice I say just celebrated, not that I celebrated it, but it was just celebrated in this city. So it's very timely as well.
I'm surprised you didn't know that, but everything else you said was bang on and perfect. That's perfect. That's a perfect way to describe Propaganda. So, and I would say those same feelings are echoed on my end here. Yeah.
Nice.
So, and I wish they did weed out some of the people, but somehow those same people are still coming and not realizing what they're singing about.
Right. There were shows not long ago that I was like looking around going, how did you guys stand the test of time? Like, weren't you gone many, many years ago?
No, those idiots are still showing up.
Yeah, they're still
they're
there
to crush some beers, crush some heads.
Despite their best efforts, Mike.
Yeah. It must be frustrating to be a band like that. And then I've always wondered, like, bands like that, you're supposed to be like, fuck.
Well, you can't really pick your fans, right?
No, you can't. And I think it's probably taxing on certain bands. My next band is also a political band on Fat Records, and that band is Good Riddance. And their 2019 album, Thoughts and Prayers. It's their 9th studio album, and I'd say it's in their top 3 albums. I know we discussed this on the podcast before, and I think even specifically with this album, but sometimes when a band has a formula and a sound, it begins to sound bland. Not necessarily bad, but you never get that oomph or excitement when you hear the album. You're like, oh, that's a good album. And then it goes in your collection and you never pull it out again, or you're never like, nothing grabs you enough to want to go back after the initial listening. And I feel like Good Riddance really suffered from this. Like I said, it's not like the albums were bad. There was nothing that stood out and been like, ugh, that was a shitty Good Riddance album. It's just like, if I want to listen to that, I'll listen to the old ones.
Yeah.
Somehow Thoughts and Prayers buck this trend for me. And it feels like, and I'll use something you said, a return to form for the band. Like, it's just, everything about this album is great.
Mm-hmm.
Just made me feel excited about them again and want to check them out again more and more. Yeah. And I don't know if you felt that way about this album as much as I do.
Yeah, I think so. I think you described it really well. And I think that that's hard to do for a 9th studio album, to do something that like separates from the pack and from albums that they've released already, but not alienate, right? And not like take such a sidestep that like people are like, who is this even?
Yeah, like I don't think they changed their sound whatsoever on this album.
No.
It's like, yeah, they didn't do that at all. It's just these songs just stood out. And maybe it was even the time it came out. It was like, the world's going to shit. It's good music to listen to.
Yeah.
The angers, you can feel the anger in their lyrics that nothing's changed. I'm sure they thought like when they were like 19 years old and writing their first albums that, we're going to make a difference, right?
Right.
And you're probably just like middle-aged man now and you're like, fuck, nothing changed. It got worse. How did it get worse?
That's a great way of describing middle age, Mike.
Yeah. The song I went with is Edmund Pettus Bridge. Love the song. Great way to kick off an album. And in classic Good Riddance form, they used a solid sound clip, which I believe is from Wall Street. Do you know, Nate, if it's from Wall Street? I'm pretty sure it's from Wall Street. It's Michael Douglas for sure.
I'd have to hear it. I can't hear it in my head.
It's a great sound clip. So
it's a great one. We'll go with that. It's a great one.
Yeah.
Would Forgotten Country still be the favorite, or does this take that over? Or do you not want to talk about it because you're not allowing yourself to go pre?
No, I can talk about it. Forgotten Country would be the nostalgic listen. I think Forgotten Country suffers from some recording quality stuff now when I go back, but the songs are still like bangers. And I think Operation Phoenix is my number one.
Huh.
And then it'd be Forgotten Country, and then probably this one.
Interesting. Like, I think Good Riddance is one of those bands too, where like, there's a lot of discussion, let's say, around their best. But I think that there's a lot of variance in that discussion, which isn't as common with other bands.
Yes. We'll wait for the Hard Times article.
Propagandy, less talk, more rock. And the track I chose was Resisting Tyrannical Government and
Good Riddance, Thoughts and Prayers. And the song is Edmund Pettus Bridge.
Why don't we all strap bombs to our chests and ride our bikes to the next G7 picnic? Seems easier with every clock tick, but whose will would that represent? Mine, yours, the rank and file, or better yet, the government. But I don't want to catalyze synthesize the second final solution. Don't wanna be the Steve Smith of the revolution. See the analogy when the Oilers, the World Bank, the Flames. 2 minutes remain in the 7th game of the best of 7 series. Yeah, Jesus saves, Gretzky scores. The workers slave, the rich get more. One wrong move, we risk the cup. Play the man, not the puck. we plant a mechanic virus and erase the memory of machines that maintain this capitalist dynasty. And yes, I recognize the irony. The system I oppose affords me the luxury of biting the hand that feeds. That's exactly why privileged fucks like me should feel obliged to whine and kick and scream. Yeah, till everyone has everything they need.
The richest 1% of this country owns half our country's wealth, $5 trillion. You got 90% of the American public out there with little or no net worth. We make the rules, pal. The news, war, peace, famine, upheaval, the price of a paperclip. We picked that rabbit out of the hat while everybody sits out there wondering how the hell we did it. Now, you're not naive enough to think we're living in a democracy, are you, buddy?
We saw ourselves with greater dreams and learned we could not overcome our disease. Skies more spacious, obsequious, from cradle to grave they deliver to us and rip our hearts from our chests. Let's talk about hope. We need a little sympathy. I think about my country through the lens of history. Let's talk about privilege, impeding resolution, and 1 billion arms entwined in revolution. But there's no substance, no exceptional design to see it through. Crusade against such ignorance, like moths to a flame without hope or defense. Intemperate discord, shepherds no reward. A traitorous few left to fall on their swords and fight until their dying breath. Let's talk about hope. We need a little sympathy. I think about my country through the blinded lens of history. Let's talk about privilege, impeding resolution, and 1 billion arms entwined in revolution. But there's no substance, no exceptional design to see it through. No deeper threat, no higher cause, no greater pretext to enunciate the letter of the law. I'm every woman, I'm every man, and I'm every non-binary hominid in this free and open land. See us conspire, not for the faint, hearts disconnected, we cannot wait. This bitter wind will leave no trace. Young odds of triumph, we must erase, we must erase.
Round 3.
Fight.
Yes. I'm glad you got what I was saying.
Oh, I got it. So this was a close contender the first time we did this as well. And I think it was a late cut. And the more I thought about it this time, I was like, no, this really does deserve to be on there. Initially, I just thought this was a ska record, which is what everyone was actually looking for in 1998, another ska record. But it always felt like something a little bit more, like something a little bit different. Recently, I heard it referenced to as a mixture of punk and Dixieland jazz, which kind of made a little bit more sense to me in the sense that like it's not just a ska record, it's something more. And as I looked into that a little bit, Dixieland jazz's main influences were ragtime, military brass bands, the blues, and gospel music, which fits a little bit more to the style of music that this is. And it's the Mad Caddies, and it's their album Duck and Cover. And it's just a style that's just a little bit more special and unique and more than just ska. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's fair. I think that the Caddies definitely do it in a different way, which is why I think they don't get as much love in the ska scene, I think.
Right. Yeah, because they didn't really fit anywhere, right? Like they didn't really fit in the ska scene and they didn't really fit in the punk scene. And they were just kind of their own thing, even though their music was really referenced in both.
Yeah, and yeah, for sure. And a great band live too.
Super great band live. This album, I think, is really thoughtful. It has songs placed in specific orders, in specific places. It starts fast out of the gates and then slows to a 5-minute song, 3 songs in. And 5 minutes is a long song, but it fits and it works with this record. And they do this throughout the album. It makes it stand out. It makes it special and really makes it an all-timer. The other thing about this record that I think makes it stand out is the horns. And in a lot of ska and a lot of like punk ska or ska core, the horns kind of create the hooks and help flesh out the melody. But the Mad Caddies horns are different than that. They're not just hook makers. They're a layer all on their own, and which is different. And oftentimes, you know, the lines are complex. They're more than just kind of, like I say, those hook makers. So I think there's a lot of standout and a lot of really special that this record was and still is many, many years later.
This would be an interesting band to rank their albums too, if Hard Times came out with an article.
Yeah, you think Duck and Cover wouldn't be your number one?
No, it wouldn't be my number one for sure. But I like that album. I like all their albums, so I don't think I would have any issues with any of their albums. But just one more, I think, would maybe. Is that the one with the blue enough?
Yeah, I think so.
Cover?
Yeah,
that's and because I think that one even took that jazz sound to it a little bit, and like the New Orleans kind of feel to it a little bit more.
I'm interested to hear what the new one's going to sound like because of the big lineup change.
Yeah, that should be very interesting. Sorry, what song did you end up picking?
Road Rash, track 1.
So this next one's a kind of a cheat, and we sort of discussed this a little bit earlier with the Lagwagon, because it's a remastered, remixed version of a 2008 release that wasn't originally on Fat. The band is Banner Pilot. The album is Resignation Day, and it's the remix version that was re-released on Fat in 2010. I believe the 2008 release was Go-Kart Records. The band had this to say about this. When we originally recorded Resignation Day back in 2007, issues came up during the recording that left us with little time for mixing. As a result, the record doesn't sound too hot. That was kind of a drag because we didn't feel we did the songs justice. But sometimes you get a second chance. Sometimes you can take something that was subpar and make it right. Like when Jason Mraz covered Blitzkrieg Bop, which I think is hilarious. I didn't know that happened, but that's hilarious. In our case, we were able to get Jacques Waite, and I hope I'm saying that right, who worked with us on Collapser, to take a look at the original tracks and take a stab at remixing them. What he came up with was awesome and sounded like a new album. Usually something billed as a remix will cause you to say, yeah, I guess the guitars are a little bit warmer now, or, oh, that's cool. The ride cymbal has a more zing on that one part. Glad I bought that album again. But in this case, we're talking about a dramatic difference. We added 2 more songs, redid the layout, and even changed the sequencing. So it's like a whole new experience, which is correct because this Resignation Day was okay before, and now it's like my favorite Banner Pilot album. So I really like this band. If you haven't heard them before, get out and take a listen. They're one of the best at that sound. It's everything awesome about Midwestern pop punk. Just give them a listen. And yeah, I wouldn't lead you astray. Have I ever led you astray, Nate?
Many times, Mike.
I'm not going to tell you if there's a sound clip that starts this song, but the song is Empty Your Bottles.
I think Banner Pilot is one of the bands that's super underrated on this label. Like no one really talks about Banner Pilot, and I think they're a great band.
Yeah. Did you see them live? I'm guessing you have. I haven't, but
I haven't seen them live. No.
Yeah, they're so good at this sound, and I agree. Like it's weird that they don't get talked about it a lot, but I'm guessing they don't fit the mold of what some people would see as a Fat Wreck Chords band.
No, definitely.
They're more like a Red Scare kind of band, I would say.
I think this was like the band that kind of started to break away at that mold, right? Like kind of started to break away at that sound, right? And evolve the label's roster to include more than just that. I don't want to say that singular sound because like all of these bands had a different sound, but there was something very like cohesive about the Fat sound.
Yeah, for sure. So
are they still putting out records? Are they still together? Are they?
I can't tell. I don't think they are. But they never gave the we're breaking up speech or
right.
They didn't just delete their socials or anything.
Right. Overnight.
Yeah.
Right. Mad Caddies, the album Duck and Cover from 1998. Track 1, Road Rash, and
Banner Pilot, Resignation Day, remixed version, and the song is Empty Bottles. Spoiler alert, there isn't a sound clip.
Cause God, it's almost over. Got a little more room to try it, hopefully. I've walked this road for 20 years and now my mind is falling. Not to say. Gotta hit the fan, man, you just don't understand the aggravation. In the stretch of danger, a problem could arise eventually. I've walked this earth for 20 years and now my mind is falling. Not to say. Every time I look into the north wind, I can't find a meaning just to ride. I don't know, but I've been told that good things come with time. Let's go! Let's get ripped on tonight. The Phoenix of our lives, a bad blast, no seats, no grace, and the yellow cliff through the cloudy bed. We can rise up, leave this separate and say, blaze away. It's just so far, so late down. Lose the day. Stay this numb, that's the way the world fell now. When no one really gets us, no one does. We sound good in silence. Now we're yelling in the brush, it's got like us. The routine, it don't make sense. Listen to can't wait, he's talking to us. Back on your backs, and we don't run with the rest. We're at one tonight, the Phoenix of our lives. A bad blast, no seats, no grace, and the yellow cliff through the cloudy bed. We can rise up, leave this separate and say, blaze away. It's just so far, so late down. Lose the day. Stay this numb, that's the way the wind fell. Take me away with you. You take me down. You move till I can kick the rounds. Front porch of the bottles, you're the gum. Just down your days. Somebody come and wake me up. Somebody come and wake me up.
I gotta say, Mike, I like this direction you took. I wish you would have shared it with me. I'm not gonna lie. I wish
I like
wish
your
you would
picks,
have
though.
shared it with me.
I didn't share it with you because I wanted you to pick some of these old ones still.
Oh, you wanted it.
Yeah.
All right.
I respect your opinion and I respect your musical taste, and I thought you would touch on some of the stuff that I wasn't going to talk about, so it's perfect.
Well, I'm going to touch it, Mike.
You touch it.
I will. I definitely will. My fourth choice, Mike, of the evening.
I await.
We've talked a lot about, well, I have. I've talked a lot, not we. Let me make it singular, Mike. It's just me. I've talked a lot about older records from the 90s, let's say. But there's been a lot, and you've proven this through your approach to this episode, that there's been a lot in the more recent years as well. A lot of really good Fat Records releases. And so I chose one of those as my next pick. This album came out in 2020. This was an album that people absolutely loved when it first came out. And for whatever reason, it didn't click for me right away. I think it made a lot of end of the year, best of the year for 2020. It's the sixth full-length record of this band. The band is Get Dead. The album is Dancing with a Curse. From track 1, you get a sense that this is something new, that this is not something that this band has done before, that this is a new approach, that this is a new kind of direction. This album is eclectic. It's got lots of different songs and songwriting choices. And again, this is very much a complete album. It's a different and more fulsome listening experience to kind of go front to back than it is to just kind of listen to these as one-off songs. There's an undeniable grit to this record, which is obviously informed to some degree by Sam King's vocals, but also just the authenticity of it all. I think that gives it that grit. And that's put in contrast with kind of a polished production, and that makes this record even more interesting. There's hints of hip hop, ska, there's nods to like Op Ivy, there's punk, there's hardcore, there's anger, frustration, and pain. And all of that makes this record uniquely its own, which is why I like it so much, because it's its own thing. It's wonderfully and intentionally crafted. The song that sold me on this album was Fire Sale, and that is the song that I'm choosing.
With co-defendants now, is Get Dead done?
I don't think so. I think they're still going. I mean, I know like Sam's voice is very unique and very distinct, but I would say they're two very different bands.
Okay. So my next album came out in 2015. It's an album that sounds like it came out in the 80s and draws heavily from hardcore and surf-inspired punk of that time. The band is Nightbirds. The album is Mutiny at Muscle Beach, and it's just an album that I fell in love with right away. It opens up with a killer track called I'm Wired, and it sounds like the perfect song to soundtrack a skate video. And if being on Fat scared some of the fan base of this band, there was nothing lost as they jumped to this label. They kept up the horror movie and pop references and included an instrumental surf track. I'm pretty stoked I got to see these guys play before they disbanded. It was wild, and I would 100% eat there again. I was really torn on what track to pick because there's so many good tracks on this album. I was really torn if I should take Lapsed Catholics Need Discipline, which I think is a great title, or I'm Wired because it's so fucking good. But I decided to go with Golden Age of TV, even though I was a little bit scared you might start mocking me for using songs with sound clips. So
is that like the subplot to your list? Is
no,
having...
there's only three of them, but I was just like, oh man, another one with the sound. Whatever.
I mean, Fat did a lot of sound clips. They were
yeah.
That was kind of their thing too.
Yeah, I just love this album so much.
Is this the only one on Fat?
Nope, the next one came out on Fat too.
Okay, but they had albums out on a different label before?
Yeah, I think this is their third or maybe fourth release.
Okay, and they're done now?
Yes, they're done.
Oh, I didn't know that. Did any of them go on to do other things?
You know what? I'm not sure. I feel like I think some of them were in other bands. I don't know them off the top of my head. They're part of that whole Long Island scene. So
Is that California or New York?
No, New York.
Get Dad, Dancing with a Curse, Fire Sale, and
Nightbirds, Mutiny at Muscle Beach, Golden Age of TV.
Show up, you'll see us case in the place. Make a note of every window, every exit, every fire escape. You never know, might have to go, might have to smoke, might have a bag full of paint. It's always hard to tell the difference, we raise for retreat. La-di-da-da-da, 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 la-di-da-da-da. Well, we go dumb as a fist bump between the knee and dollars off a shut and push it down until the south is the love. Lights and all the idiots, up and all the silly shit. It's just ridiculous, it's just idiots. Cause that's the fabulous, that's the gold on an acid is. What's the matter with not being timid amongst the savages? Who grab it, never kissing it, never could never speaking. Couldn't even manage and magic to follow after this. Wave up and waiting on something other than nonsense. Time makes sense. Scrape away all the decay. These battle wounds on display. These scars we earn. We enjoy the way a Molotov lights up a place. One blatant disregard for safety, just look at my face. Running to put your eyes above the makeup in the storyline. Busy with cautious snakes circled on the pretty lines. By the wave, not the water to believe. It's a stronger, better, best better what you say. Wave open, waiting on something other than nonsense. Time makes sense. Scrape away all the decay. These battle wounds on display. These scars we earn.
This is the way nightmares begin, or perhaps end.
I used to flip the sick day I had, so I started falling in lane. And now I find I'm even more behind the fault line. I was gonna be great. I'm becoming a full-time job, and you can call me Emily now bound. I didn't see the next 15 seasons if I ever wanted to count. Golden age of TV, never leave the living room again. Golden age of TV, an update on a trusted friend. Golden age of TV, cheers to the national health. Golden age of TV, and nothing else. I get lost in fictional worlds, start to death and visiting block. No need to deal with the latest war, another unarmed citizen shot. Lower the blinds and I'll be just fine, as long as you keep them shut. Rip a block on the cable news, God, what the news, something's gone. Golden age of TV, never leave the living room again. Golden age of TV, an update on a trusted friend. Golden age of TV, cheers to the national health. Golden age of TV, and nothing else.
a naughty little Hitler.
Those bald spots on the head of mankind where he's been pulling his hair out.
Takes a tough man to make a tender forecast, Nick. I guess that's me. Keep fucking that chicken.
Thanks to everyone who has continued to listen to us. Thanks to Nathan for not trying to say my name in a French accent this episode.
Wow.
Thanks to the WhatsApp group for all the conversations and extra support that goes way beyond the little podcast. If you like our podcast, say hello. We love hearing from you. Or better yet, tell a friend to have a listen. Share it on your socials or give us a nice rating so the algorithm doesn't hide us behind some reel about amazing Amazon products you just have to check out. No, seriously, though, we do love hearing from you. Every time we get a message, it makes both of us smile. We hope you continue to listen to this little podcast. And seriously, Nate, thank you so much for all you do on it. And again, thank you to the listeners. Let's hear your last pick, Nate.
And thank you, Mike. Thank you for being the other half of this outstanding partnership that is the High Fives podcast.
I prefer friendship, but if you want to call it a partnership, we can go back to that.
Yeah, partnership's bigger than friendship, Mike.
Okay.
Mike's my partner. He's not my friend, right? Like that sounds bigger, doesn't it?
We're in it till the end.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, we're friends too, but like friends is like a step under partners, I think.
Oh, okay.
That's how I was coming to it.
Okay. I feel better about the partnership tag then.
Good. Feel good about it.
All right.
Feel good, Mike.
I feel great.
It's the feel good story of the summer. All right. My last pick is also a newer release. My first time around with this episode, the compilation that I chose was Survival of the Fattest, Volume 2. For obvious reasons, this was the gateway to all sorts of things. This was the thing that opened the door to all sorts of bands and music and just discovery, really, at the time that Survival of the Fattest came out. And so I chose it with good reason the first time around. But as the years have gone on, I saw it at a record store recently because they're doing reissues. And I picked it up and I had it in my hand. And then I put it back and I didn't get it. And I think the reason that I did that was because it was $5 when we were discovering all this for the first time. And there was something that just felt like inauthentic about spending $30 on this compilation of songs that I probably have on CDs and, in several different digital files and probably on records too. And so I don't know, there was just something about it that just didn't feel the same.
I get it. The compilation also, like specifically those ones, were meant to turn you on to those bands. Like, I mean, exactly. I think for nostalgic reasons, I could see why one would want to own it. But it's not like you don't need to listen to that compilation anymore. It's just...
It did its job, right?
Yeah, for 100%. It was like perfect.
Fat Records did do a lot of compilations, and arguably the best of the bunch is one of their newer compilations. And this was a compilation that came out on the heels of Something Tragic. The one I'm talking about is the Songs of Tony Sly, a tribute. This was obviously something that came out after Tony passed away. After the blow of Tony's death had lessened a bit, the Fat family wanted to do something for Tony's family, and they decided to put this comp together. And there was just an overwhelming response from bands from all over the punk community, not just Fat bands, but far and wide, and they wanted to be a part of it. On the original version, there's 26 of Tony Sly's songs. On the bonus version, there's 33 songs that are covered, and all of them highlighting what an amazing songwriter Tony Sly was. And sometimes that can get lost a bit, like songwriting and how good of a songwriter somebody is. I always liked No Use for a Name, and I always liked Tony's solo stuff, but it wasn't until I heard this record, this album, that I truly heard his songwriting and how good it was, which is kind of weird. But the song that I chose for this was the first song, which is The Biggest Lie, which was done by Karina Danique. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but we'll call it right for now. Karina's from the Dancehall Crashers. She also plays in No Effects. I just learned today that she has solo stuff out too. But her version of The Biggest Lie really sets the table for this album. It's haunting, but in a way that fires off all the goosebumps in just the right way.
I'm really glad you picked this album because I wanted to pick one of the Tony Sly albums, but for the same reason. I guess I always liked No Use for a Name. I didn't necessarily love the solo stuff until I heard this album. And like same thing, like I realized how great his lyrics were and like everything just fit together. Like it all made sense. It's like a puzzle came together.
Yeah.
In a tragic circumstance, a puzzle came together, and I was like, I just appreciated his solo albums and No Use for a Name that much more. So I'm glad you picked it. And yeah, another reason is because my last album is a covers album too. So it just works.
Perfect.
I don't know if you have anything else to say about the Tony Sly tribute.
I was just going to say, I think that this was this is really reflective of what the Fat Family is and was too, right? Like, supporting their family, supporting the musicians, supporting, more than just musicians, their family. That's
a good point. And I don't know if it's still the case with Fat. I'd like to feel that way, but especially those like first like chunk of Fat releases, it felt like they were a family. It felt like they were touring together, they were playing together, and I always liked that image of bands that wanted to be together and hang out together. And maybe it was even on those compilations where they just had the pictures of the bands in the and things. I don't know. It just always felt like the model for something of how the scene should be, that they're work together, play together, all that stuff.
Yeah.
They weren't your metal bands that were just in it for the bucks.
A message to you, Rudy.
Yeah. The band I picked is a band we sort of talked about already, and I felt weird picking a covers album. And if you're going to pick a covers album by a Fat band, you'd probably pick me first.
Probably.
But the band I picked was Mad Caddies and their album Punk Rock Steady, which came out in 2018.
Nice.
I was sitting outside when I was working on this list in the hot sun, and I kept thinking, yeah, I have to pick this album. It's just the perfect sitting in the sun album. And they covered a bunch of Fat Records bands, so it kind of worked too. There's a Propaganda cover. They covered a Lagwagon song off Double Platinum, which a lot of people don't like as a Lagwagon album, but I love. I thought that was funny that they picked the song off there. And then they have a bunch of other classic punk rock songs covered, like they cover an Against Me song, Op Ivy, the cover of She, which is for my money the best Green Day track. It's just a great album that came, and like you said about Mad Caddies, their sound's just a little bit different than a lot of the Fat bands, and it's not necessarily ska. It is ska, but it's not, and like it's punk, but it's not punk. So this album kind of highlights all of that into one thing, and just front to back, it's rare that a covers album front to back is so exciting.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how you feel about this album or not.
Yeah, I think it's a solid choice. I really like this album, and I think they did a really good job of covering these songs. Like, they didn't just like put them into a different genre. They really kind of made them their own. Yeah,
that's exactly what I was thinking. And the song I went with is Some Kind of Hate, which is a Misfits cover, and I just picture how angry Glenn would be listening to this, and it just kind of makes me smile. And that's how I wanted this episode to go out on. A big smile of me picturing Glenn angry.
I love that for you, Mike.
Yeah. It's perfect.
The Songs of Tony Sly, a tribute, Biggest Lie, Karina Danique, and
Mad Caddies, Punk Rock Steady, Some Kind of Hate. Thanks for listening. Stay cool and be excellent to each other. You people are really the best.
and burn the candle at both ends. I really think we are becoming more mindless of the heart, becoming everything we hate, building our castles for the future, a Trojan horse is at the gate, built by the enemy that we made. It's false sincerity, we hear celebrities, buy hybrid if you can, with 10 years of your food stamps. Caught myself listening to sheltered excuses for human beings. So it becomes elite. They separate, then what have we got? Nothing in common with their world. One clip could change public opinion. One sin could send you straight to hell. Learn how to lie and not get caught. More piss in the melting pot. Ooh.
I guess that's the beauty of editing, hey? You can just
It
take
is the
out what you
beauty.
don't like.
There's so many things that I'm like, well, that didn't work, and that's gone.
Yeah, you put the effort in to edit. You get to make those calls.
I make all the calls.
Make one of us look stupid and the other one look like he's a genius.
Yeah. Jury's out on who's who in that. I feel like you don't like this episode already. Do you not like this episode already?
Do I not like this episode?
Yeah.
I made myself like it in a way. It's not that I don't like the. No, well, I was going to discuss it, but it's not that I don't like the episode.
Okay.
I like the idea. It's just that those picks for my first episode would probably still be my picks.
Interesting.
Kind of thing. But when we get into the episode.
Okay.
Discuss it.
We'll unpack it then.
Yeah.
Okay.